Welcome to Real People, Real Business. My name is Izu Nwachukwu, and this is my podcast. On the podcast, I bring in entrepreneurs who have been successful in the UAE to tell us their stories of how they became successful, for us to learn from them. But I also want us to learn from their mistakes. I want us to learn from their challenges. I want us to learn from the issues that they had to overcome to become successful, because many of them didn't do it overnight. So on today's podcast, I have an amazing gentleman here with us. He's the founder of TBH Advisory and Mailist.com. He's into people and business consultancy, and he's had 17 years experience in the UAE and GCC when it comes to driving human capital and talent. Talib Hashim, welcome to Real People, Real Business.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. I know you're fasting today, so we'll try and wrap it up a little bit so you can have time to yourself. But before we kick off today, I want to first say we were meant to have this episode last week, but the rains in Dubai really messed everything up, and I heard that it impacted your home as well.
Yes.
So I just want to say I hope you and your family and your home are okay and everything's been resolved.
Yes. We're good. We're good. We call the rains in Arabic the Amtar al-Rahma, which is the rains of mercy. But part of what happens is some areas are more affected, floods and a bit of rains. But alhamdulillah, thank God, we managed it, and it's a good segue into Ramadan.
Yeah.
Ramadan is a month of tests and challenges and taking things positively. Yeah. So we experienced a little bit of little Venus in our area. So I'm looking at it positively, but we're all good. Thank you for asking.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear it. So Talib, let's get into your story. I know you started your career in the banking industry, but when we had our first conversation, you took me back further than that. As an Emirati young man, you were doing things that you weren't expected of you. So can we start back at how you started, your career and working, and then you moved into the banking industry?
Yes. So I always say, with what I'm doing right now, you can. There's a saying that says you can only understand life going forward if you look backwards, right? So. What I'm doing now is really, if I think of it, is really the clues for it was back when I graduated from high school. So I've experienced unemployment. So I've been unemployed a few stages in my life. And then I experienced being employed in non-traditional sectors. Yes. Which is a conversation I'm having now with local talent, trying to get them into the private sector. And then I experienced as well being self-employed. So everything makes sense and has led to where I am at the moment. But when I started off high school, graduated from high school, didn't get into college immediately, went straight into looking for a job first thing, and then experience what it was like not only being unemployed but the whole job search journey. And I tell people today when you're looking for a job, it's really not on the press of your button. You actually get notification. It's actually when you're sleeping, you get notification on your mobile phone. Would you be interested in applying with this job? But when I started off, it was printing as many copies of my CVs, and then taking the bus, going to Khalid bin Walid Street, the computer street back then in Dubai was the business hub. For the newbies who are not familiar, that was the business hub of Dubai before Sheikh Zayed Road and the DIFCs of this world and the Marina and JLTs and so forth. And knocking on doors and applying for jobs. So I experienced really the essence of applying for jobs, being being turned down by the first obstacle would be the PA or the receptionist who would accept to take your CV or not. And then I started landing jobs which came my way. And for me, the thinking was, I need to get a job and I need to gain experience. Some of the jobs I landed were odd. So, for example, one of my jobs was during the Dubai Shopping Festival. I used to land a lot of short-term gigs. One of them was selling chocolate at the shopping festival. This was back when the shopping festival was in Riga Street, if you remember, which is a whole carnival. And that taught me being independent, and also it humbles you when you're working with people from different nationalities and you're selling chocolates, Snickers, Mars, etc. And you're earning pay per day. Another job which I've for so long kept a little bit of a secret, but now I think I look at it and I say, wow, that job really paved the way to what I'm doing as well, right? Which was being a performing magician. During the shopping festival.
Wow.
So it was a gig in a hidden shopping center in Dera. And the gig was, we want you to stand on the stage dressed up in waistcoat, magician hat, and then they taught me a few tricks. And it wasn't about doing magic. It was about performing and attracting people so that they purchased the raffle tickets. That was back then. So I learned a few tricks, was on stage, and then lo and behold, people were seeing this local guy on the stage announcing, carrying a microphone, announcing to people, come and view the show, and trying to convince them at the same time, excite them, engage them, convince them to buy raffle tickets. And I did that for 30 days. It was a 30-day gig. And today I look at it, I think, wow, that was my first experience in standing on stage, public speaking, and engaging an audience. And the audience were different nationalities. Some nationalities I've never heard of before. Now, this was late 1990s. And we had East Europeans, people from the Asian subcontinent, Europeans. It was about engaging them, keeping them interested and attracted. So I landed those kind of roles, and maybe a proper first job for me was working as a timeshare salesman. In a company, and that gig didn't finish. I didn't finish 6 months in that gig because the company turned out to be a bit of a fraud. And we found out later on. But for those of you who are familiar with timeshare, you know that's a deep dive into sales, because you have to close sales on the same night. It's about pitching. You don't know who you're pitching to. You have to understand your client, understand what triggers them, what emotional buttons to push, and then closing the deal and the sale on the same day. So that was the first proper job, which turned out to be a bit of a scam. And then I ended up working, landing a real legitimate job for Bella Catering, which is today called Emirates Catering. We were only 2 UAE nationals out of the 1,500 nationals. 1,500 employees. And it was almost like a factory. You punch in, then you punch out, you go in. It's a whole operation, huge operation. I learned there, if you ask me what I learned from that experience, I learned dealing with diversity and developing that cultural sensitivity. Because I was working in the store with Nepalese, Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Filipinos, Syrians, and I was the only local in the store area and also in the kitchen area. So that gave me that sense of the cultural sensitivity. So it's not unfamiliar territory when I'm thrown in a diverse environment. Then I landed a job in the bank. The bank took me in, and I started from calling people as a bill collector.
Right. Okay. So the guy no one wants to hear from.
The guy no one wants to hear from. I started from there, calling people, and then I moved up little by little to land a role in a function that really expanded my horizon. I felt that function was really my step into the world as we know it, the economics, the trade and business, which was the global market. So I was a trader for a bank.
Right.
And when you're trading, you're connected with what happens in economy and business. Yes. And you understand how money moves, transactions happen, and you're also in touch with geopolitical events that influence economies and trade and business. Yeah. So that was my journey in summary. Yeah.
Cool. So when I look at this and I hear what you're saying, you weren't afraid to work outside of your comfort zone. You weren't afraid to do the odd jobs. You got up on stage. I cannot imagine being a magician on stage myself. So you got up there and you spoke to these people, and so you come across to me like someone who just wasn't afraid to play outside of the box or what was designed for them. So working with different nationalities, working in a factory and stuff like that. I mean, I have some of that background in my history too. I worked in a factory as well, and it was an ice cold factory, food storage, and I hated it because I hate the cold. Yeah. But you come across as someone who is kind of open to sort of playing outside the box and exploring and not being held down by whatever narrative is kind of mapped out for you.
Yes. Yeah. I think that I'm realizing I'm still learning about myself, and I'm realizing maybe that's what keeps me excited, keeps the fire within me. Yeah. Was I unafraid at that time? I don't know. I wouldn't say I was bold, courageous. I just took what life handed me and I went with it. Yeah. I guess my mindset was that. Yeah. My mindset was, right, life has handed me this. Yeah. Let's go with it. Go with it. Even the job in the timeshare company was quite a coincidence. Yeah. It was me and my friend, my best friend, and we saw an ad in the newspaper about walk-in interviews. Yeah. And we went into the building. Now I don't remember the room numbers exactly, but let's say hypothetically the walk-in interview was in room 121. We went into room 1112. So there were two walk-in interviews. Yeah. We went into, for example, room 112. Now it was his fault, not my fault. So we walk in, and we're surprised, and the people who are holding the interview are surprised because they see two locals. Yeah. What are these two locals doing here? They see ID on the cover. Little did we know, because it turned out, again, like I told you, it was a
bit of a dodgy business.
Yes, a bit of a dodgy business, right? And then we looked at each other and like, we're not supposed to be in this room, right? Like, okay, let's just go with the flow. Yeah. And we went with the flow. And I want to take back, we learned that the lessons I learned from that experience was invaluable. Sales and persuasion, taught body language, and how to influence and manipulate people, right? So if you use it positively, it's always good. So I think I took what life handed me and I went with it. And I think that's my attitude until today.
Fantastic. So let's go into your career in the bank. Yeah. So you go into the bank, you've gone to become a trader. But I know when we were speaking earlier, you mentioned that it didn't make you happy. Yeah. And that's kind of what led to you deciding to start your own business. So just tell me about that process, that transition, what, how you felt, and then how that pushed you into your own business.
Yeah. Look, when when you're working as a trader, back then I was in the UAE Treasury Association. I was registered as the only local, the only Marathi trader, not in Treasury, but trader who was actually a risk maker, a deal maker. So we go and we actually make deals. So we're not corporates.
Right.
We actually take the risk. Yeah. We trade. So I was the only Emirati in there. Now in the trading room, again, I was the only Emirati and the youngest person in the room. Probably one or two young people in the room. And you're working with diversity, right? And it's high-pressured work, really high-pressured work. Your work, you start off from 7 a.m. coming in and reading about what happened in the market a day before, the night before, and then what is expected or forecasted to happen in the market on the day ahead, right? And then 7:30, actual work starts. You're sitting there in a cubicle. You have 3 to 4 screens in front of you. You have a speaker, a microphone. And you have brokers throughout yelling out numbers and prices and profanities.
Okay. Buy,
right?
Sell, buy,
sell, and whatever. Okay. And your day is defined by 2 colors, red or green.
Oh, wow.
A red day is you've made losses. Right? You've made losses on that day. And you see your positions on the screen. A green is you've made profit, right? So you do that when Middle East comes in, London market comes in, and then a lot of times when New York walks in. So you're working till evening. Ramadan today Ramadan, I'm spending it. I'm able to spend it with family, but back then I wasn't spending Ramadan. My iftar was on the trading desk.
Wow.
It was you break your fast right before New York walks in.
Right.
And when it's an important day where you have the Fed making announcements, interest rate cuts, interest rate increase, payroll, wages, numbers, the different data that comes out from the US or Europe. You're breaking your fast enough so that you can go back and take on calls, right? So when your day is defined by red or green day in and day out, and your human interaction is with the people next to you and opposite you, trading desk like this, right? Not even people in the department, the entire floor. You rarely have time unless you're standing up to stretch your feet, talk, but you're always glued to the screen, right? It gets to you. So again, there was value that I gained from that role, but I still remember the advice I got when I was interviewed by the British treasurer that we had at that time. And he told me, listen, this job needs nerves of steel, and the shelf life, don't do more than 3 years, 4 years. And I didn't understand that. So it was great. We're the highest paid employees in the bank, probably, right? And we had a sort of a chip on our shoulder being traders, right? And we look a little bit arrogantly to the rest of the people because we knew the importance of our role. But then when you do that and that becomes your routine, you start losing things. You start losing your ability to engage and deal and interact with people, people skills, which is so important, right? You start realizing that, is this it? Being stuck in a cubicle and my interaction is this environment. What is my purpose? What is my role? These are questions that came to me, and I felt I had hit a glass ceiling because I had no other skill. You have people with special skills, but that becomes their limited skills, right? So I had no other skill, no ability to hold a conversation like we're holding a conversation today. No ability to influence anything. So that's when I realized it's not fulfilling enough.
Yeah.
And I went into a phase that was a bit of a dark phase for me, where people didn't realize and understand it. And I remember having a conversation with my mother, and telling her I'm not happy. I'm not happy. So
what did she say?
She encouraged me to leave.
Okay.
Right.
Fantastic.
If you're not happy, because she realized that this is not where I'm fulfilling my value.
Yeah.
But leave to where we both had no clue.
Yes.
Maybe in her mind was leave and find something better, another job, maybe, right? But just leave this environment if you're unhappy, right? And you're not, your value is not, you're not realizing your value. It's not other people not realizing your value. It's you taking accountability and not pursuing the value that you need to achieve. Yeah. And that's where people also, respond to you if you take accountability and responsibility and take that step.
Yes.
I was incapable of taking that step because I couldn't see my life beyond. A lot of people don't understand it. You know what's funny enough is that until today I'm an entrepreneur, right?
Yes.
And I have people asking me, and I left that world 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. But until today, I have people asking me, you know what, Talib? You would have done well if you stick to that job.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to leave that job.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to explain it to them.
Yes. You found your purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to explain to them sticking to that job, what it was doing to me, and the type of person or the kind of person I would have been.
Yes.
They can't understand or fathom it, right? And again, I'm not putting blame on the job as it is. I'm not putting blame on the colleagues I made. My colleagues, a lot of them are still people I'm in touch with, and I'm friends with until today, right? But me in that environment, it had a purpose, it had a time and duration, and I outlived it.
Yes.
And once you outlive it, you need to get out. You need to understand, right, it's time to outgrow. I see a lot of people who choose to remain in a scenario in where they've outlived or outgrown their roles, and they are unhappy despite of the pay they get or the title and the prestige that they get, but they're unhappy. And that's real fear of actually stepping out of it, saying, I'm going to find something else, right? Yeah. So I realize it's time to do something, and I need to press the eject button.
Or the reset button.
Or the reset button,
And so that led you to start TBH Advisory, right?
At that time, we were called Next Level. When you started
Next
off,
Level.
I co-founded Next Level.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so tell me about that. Tell me about that journey starting Next Level. What was Next Level about, and how did you then pivot to the advisory that you are today?
The idea of Next Level came about when I was seconded to Kuwait by the Treasury Department to lead the setup of the Treasury Department in Kuwait for the bank. And Kuwait was very different, completely different. Dubai was almost you're in a rat race. Kuwait was chilled out, laid back, completely out of
balance.
Extreme work-life balance. It's so extreme. I had a culture shock. You know, my system was not used to it, right? And finishing work, leaving work early, and actually having so much time you don't know what to do. So that time and space gave me the ability or the creativity to think of what do I want to do next. And I think I need to do something. I need to move up from being employed. And I had a friend who became a partner at that time. And he had a home-based recruitment company, a headhunting firm called First Step.
Right.
And he thought, I need help. I need to focus on my day job. If you can help me with the work that I'm doing. And my plan, my grand ingenious plan to leave my work was to go back and do my bachelor's degree again in London.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So leave my excuse for resigning was I'm resigning to go and do my bachelor's degree again in London, another 4 years.
Yeah.
And I had traveled around London. I looked at all the different colleges and universities, and I even chose one, paid the down payment.
Right.
I was ready to move, right?
Yeah.
So that was my naive self, right? Because I wanted out, right? So in Kuwait, I thought, what's next in my life? And then the name Next Level came up. And he said, hey, listen, if we're going to work together, you want me to be a co-founder, we have to issue a new license, and new brand, and call it Next Level. Okay. So Next Level was really what was next level in my career, and what can we bring to other people. And when we started Next Level, we started it at that time wanting to do two things. One, recruitment, and the second thing was cultural integration, workshops and programs and tours.
Okay.
This was the grand plan back then, right? And recruitment, we started recruiting for whatever requirements. So we didn't have a niche or specialization. Just like any startup that goes in and says, we want to do everything. That's what we did. So we recruited engineers, blue collar technicians, all the way to people who are at executive level. It took me to travel with clients to Philippines, India, Sri Lanka, Nigeria, Moscow. I was in Lagos, Abuja.
Fantastic. My home country.
And then Moscow, Bulgaria. It took me to all these places.
Fantastic.
That's why we started Next Level. But then I started listening to clients, and a lot of the clients I was speaking with were saying, Talib, you're the first UAE national who we're having a conversation with about what are our needs when it comes to talent and human capital, talent acquisition and human capital. We've never met an Emirati consultant. Can you find us other Emiratis like you? And that became a recurring question. And then we made a business decision. And the business decision was, at that time there was, according to the economic department, there was 1,500 recruitment consultancies which were doing recruitment. There were only 2 to 3 Emirati led, not on paper, but actually managed. There was mainly 2, right? I was one of them. But that might sound like an advantage, but actually it also gave us a huge disadvantage, because we realized when we're looking at recruiting at the market of, entry level, blue collar, the entry level employees, mid level, we were competing with agencies and consultancies that were from Asia, from Arab countries, and we were outnumbered by them. They had established relationships.
I would say they're probably more established. So you started as a small
player
in that field.
And then at a lot of time we were undercut. We were competing in terms of pricing, and you will never win that war. And then when we wanted to look at or tap into the higher market of executives, we were competing with Western agencies. Again, we were at a disadvantage. We didn't have the legacy, the reputation, the brand recognition they had. So we said, we'll say no to 90% of the market just to focus on this 10% of the market, if it was 10%, which was a niche, that niche of localization and nationalization. And we said, no one can bring more credibility and know-how than locals to the conversation. And that's how we started.
I want to touch on that a little bit more before I kind of go into your journey and experience as an entrepreneur, what you went through. Because I think, again, so when I sometimes advise people on business, I sometimes say, what is your niche, right? Because like you said, as entrepreneurs, we want to go out and we want to try and grab it all, but you're playing against a huge market. So what is that niche that nobody is already playing in? No one's successful. It may not bring you the biggest revenue to start with, but it establishes you operationally, establishes you as a brand in front of clients, and then I think from there you can have this sort of stepping stone into the bigger market. Because and so what's your take on that? Do you think that that's a viable business strategy for entrepreneurs, small businesses? Find that niche where no one's playing and then build from there.
Yeah. I think I wouldn't generalize and say everyone has to find a niche.
Right.
Because sometimes people overdo finding a niche and they find themselves cornered in a niche that doesn't bring sustainability or commercial value.
Yeah.
But finding a niche is a good strategy to look at. And then you have different strategies. Yeah. There's the niche market strategy, the price, leadership, the marketing and branding. Yeah. So there are different strategies that you can play with. Now, the niche strategy is nice, but it is a strategy, and it might be a stepping stone into scaling.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Scaling in a manner that makes sense.
Yes.
So you start with a niche and then you move on. And you find a lot of the successful multinationals today started with a niche and then they scaled up. They expanded. Yeah. And then when you read about them and you realize, actually, this company, this was the niche. Yeah. Today, this is what they do, right? So I think it's a very delicate process of not only finding the niche, and this is where we found ourselves, finding a niche and then communicating. When you find a niche, there's work to be done.
Yes.
It's not, there's a process of education.
Yes.
You have to spread awareness and educate your clients about your niche.
Yes.
Because clients are not all of them are aware and understand the value of it. So there is that needs to happen. So you have to put a lot of time into being a walking, talking reflection, an example of what your niche is about. Yeah. Right? So educating the market takes a lot of time when you find your niche. And then communication, and communicating consistently about the niche, what value it brings. And then communication is very important when you decide, right, this is our niche. These are the new products that come out of this niche. Yeah. And this is why we're coming out with these products. Yeah. So that clients don't think, oh, you're all over the place. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So for us, I'll tell you, we started off at a time where nationalization was all about numbers. It was all about find locals, get them jobs. Find locals, get them jobs. Yeah. Right? That was it. And then the most that definition was expanded into find locals, get them jobs, and it would be nice if you train them.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So for us, what we did when we started off, we realized that this finding jobs recruitment and finding jobs, finding locals jobs and putting them on seats was just one piece of the puzzle. It didn't solve everything. We realized that, one, there were challenges and issues across the talent cycle. So one, you had companies thinking, how do we capture the minds and hearts of these youth who are in school or university before they go into the market, before we have to compete with everyone else. Yeah. So how do we pipeline talent? How do we promote our employer brand in a manner that clicks and connects with the market segment? Yeah. And then once we've done that, how do we adapt our process, our talent acquisition process in a manner that is also suitable and doesn't set us up for failure.
Yes.
Right? Like, for example, this is an example. Advertising jobs for nationals in the in newspapers.
Yes.
Right? Not the most effective way.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
The assessment process, the length of the assessment process, the complexity of it, if it's part of the recruitment process from the get-go, right, sets yourself up for failure. People want to be able to be encouraged, right? I've applied for a job, and what is this job about?
Yeah.
Then I will invest my time and resource,
Yes.
my time and mental capabilities to actually sitting an assessment,
Yes.
not from the get-go.
Yes.
So these are things that we had started studying and having conversations about.
Yes.
So we removed the hat of a recruiter and we wore the hat of consultants and advisors,
Right.
or scientists. We're looking at the different gaps that exist in the talent cycle. What happens after you've hired nationals?
Yeah.
Right? How are you retaining them?
Yes.
How are you keeping them engaged, motivated?
Yes.
And how are you aligning their purpose with the organization's values and purpose, so that they stick for the long run?
Yeah.
Right? So we found ourselves in front of a bunch of gaps
Yes.
that were not really addressed by this concept of nationalization. And then what we started doing was communicating to clients why these gaps are actually a problem and why you need to address them. Now that's niche market communication and marketing. So that's what we've been doing for the past 15 years before we expanded our niche to localization. We'll talk a little bit more about it later. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, like you said, it seems like you found your niche, you found all the gaps, and you're addressing it in terms of two things that seem to be a passion of yours, which is getting local talents into the jobs and making sure that those gaps are plugged in, and then connecting the dots between international businesses and corporates within the local market as well. So you're acting like that sort of linchpin as an advisor.
Yeah.
I want to understand where do you see what's next for TBH Advisory? Where do you see what do you want to achieve with it in the next 5-10 years? How do you see the business panning out? What other gaps do you see? What impact or value do you see the business bringing to the region, or even indeed the world?
Yes, yeah. It's very interesting. We've rediscovered ourselves after COVID, the pandemic, and earlier this year. Last year was about experimentation and stepping out of our comfort zones. And our comfort zone was looking at not only the people side of business, but also helping and enabling businesses that are looking to access the market and understand the local market, identify local partners and stakeholders, and localize their products and services, right? So that took us to doing different things, from B2B events to advising and consulting businesses, international businesses that are looking to set up over here, to even sponsoring fashion shows.
Fantastic.
For me, it was, I made a decision, right, in order for us to survive going forward, we need to remove the skin and step into our power and into what we should become. And to do that, sometimes you have to do crazy things, right?
You have to experiment.
You have to experiment.
Stuff.
Experimentation can be painful. It takes time. It takes your resources. There's money that's spent, and your time and energy. But that was useful because today, when you ask me that question, I know exactly what we want, and we've started, we've kick-started again, pursuing what we want. So we remember when I mentioned we're a people and business advisory. We focused a lot on localization of workforce, the people part, right? which is how do you attract, hire, and grow local talent in the UAE and the GCC into the workplace.
Yes.
And maybe also we dabble into entrepreneurship and enabling entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs, right? But today, what we're doing is we see ourselves being the go-to localization advisory company here in the Middle East region.
Fantastic.
When we talk about localization, some people look at localization as translation services. Some people look at localization as recruitment of locals and whatnot. Localization is really about, and there's a textbook definition, and that is a strategic investment an organization makes into building its capacity and capabilities in a manner that brings positive returns to their workforce acquisition, talent attraction, workplace sustainability, and commercial sustainability.
Okay.
Right? That's the textbook definition.
Yeah.
For us, there was this term, and I'll steal it from PwC. Okay. And that term really resonated with me, and they wrote a paper about it, which is localization is the new globalization. And I did research about it, and what we see is globalization as a movement is changing and has changed, and it will change some more. Before it was, how can companies become global and bring their ethos and values and products into other countries?
Yes.
Today, that's not the name of the game. The name of the game, how can these global organizations adapt to local needs,
markets,
adapt to local culture,
yes,
adapt to local nuances, right?
Fantastic.
So you have global organizations, whether they're setting up here in the UAE, in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, whether they're setting up in Kenya, in Rwanda, it's the same thing.
Yes.
People, the youth who are the majority of the population today, are aware.
Yes.
Their tastes and their needs are more complex.
Yes.
So they no longer want what product you have that's worked for you over there in the same shape. They want how can you fulfill
what we need.
Yeah. Right.
In our own
shade. Exactly. Yeah. So what we're doing is taking that knowledge, all that knowledge that we've had, working with private sector companies, understanding the local market. Dubai and UAE is an amazing laboratory, and it's an amazing platform for data and insight, where you have the whole world here. So the experience you gain, the data and feedback information you gain is unlike anywhere else.
Yes.
And then you have a distinct local culture, right, which is the locals.
Yeah.
So we learned how what an organization needs to do to engage and connect with local culture, and how do they need to do it. So what we're doing is taking all of that and positioning ourselves as a localization consultancy born out of here, the UAE. So whether it is talent solutions, we have flagship solutions there, or it is business solutions. Yes. And these are my focus areas. When it comes to talent, we just launched Wiana Jobs, which is an employment platform to run talent pooling and talent search solutions for companies and work-ready solutions. And we also launched Mailist.com. And Mailist is a community-powered platform that aims to enable local and international talent in the Middle East. How we do that? B2B events, all the way to programs like the Bridge program and the upskilling programs. These are the two areas I'm focused on. And it all feeds into this mission that we have, and that is becoming the go-to localization advisory.
Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks so much for that. And, I can only look forward to the coming years to see how you expand into this region. So we get into the last section of the episode today, and I have 3 questions for you, which is, for you to share your wisdom. And the first question is, what's the most surprising fact that you've learned about yourself throughout your entrepreneurial journey? The second is, what is success to you? And the third is, what advice can you give to others who are looking to start their entrepreneurial journey, or who want to scale up their entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, wow. All right. I'll try to sum it up in this Ramadan.
So what's the most surprising thing you've learned about yourself?
I think the most surprising thing, if I really think the most surprising thing I learned about myself are 2 things. One, that if anyone asks me, what is your superpower? I would say my superpower is about being authentic, my authentic self. Fantastic. And my ability to communicate authentically are my superpowers. Leadership is about not only talking the talk, but also walking the walk, right? Mm-hmm. And when it comes to authenticity, I realize that I'm not a great salesperson, all right? But when I'm speaking from a place of authenticity, I realize it connects with people.
Yes.
It's as powerful as being a great salesperson, right? So that's something it took a while. It took me a long time. And I realized that maybe a couple of years ago, to be honest, right? And I mentioned to be honest, and that inspired me, because I speak from a place of authenticity and can communicate that way. It inspired me to launch my own podcast, which is the To Be Honest podcast.
Fantastic.
Right? And it's talking about Middle East issues, local issues from angle of talent, business, and HR practices, but with full honesty, with full authenticity. Yes. Right? So the first thing is being able to communicate authentically.
Right.
That's something I realize is my superpower. Fantastic. The other thing that was surprising was being to my journey and being able to show the authentic side of my journey actually inspires people. And it took me a while to acknowledge that. And I think as entrepreneurs, we try to be too humble, and we don't give ourselves enough credit. We don't have anyone to give us a pat in the back. Yeah. So sometimes you have to also give credit to yourself. Yes. But I started getting messages and feedback from people who tell me, you said something 10 years ago that clicked with me, right, and has influenced me. Yes. To change how I look at my life. Fantastic. Or how I approach my career. My journey and the work that I do is it's no flowers and roses. There's a lot of hardship. There's a lot of emotional resilience. Yes. And I think when we talked about, and I mentioned something, what entrepreneurship takes, it takes profit level resilience and emotional fortitude to actually go through it. Some people say, oh, profit, but really the things that you have to dig deep inside yourself to bring out of yourself patience, strength, positivity, even when things are looking extremely bad. Yes. And keep a strong, confident face. Yes. Can't look broken or weak. You don't have that luxury. Yes. So it takes that, and it's not something that people think is trendy and sexy. It takes, if you want to think about entrepreneurship, remember this. It takes profit level resilience. Right? Interesting. And so when people saw that, when people would see the journey that I'm taking, right? Some of the people reached out to me and they told me that we find it inspiring.
Fantastic.
That you're still at it.
Yes.
We find it inspiring that you're still being successful.
Yeah.
Right. For me as an entrepreneur,
yeah,
I'm thinking,
I'm grinding.
I'm grinding.
I'm grinding.
What's success? I'm not successful. Right? And my bank account is not what I want it to be. Okay.
Yeah.
But people see
we give hope to people like that when they see, listen, there's some, it's like you said, it takes that prophet level resilience. It takes that waking up and saying, okay, you know what? Today might be a challenge, but I'm going to go through it. I'm going to do it. And I love what you say. And we can discuss this on another podcast about, because I think there's so much to it about being your authentic self.
Yeah.
I really love that. And I'm glad that you're on that journey, because I'm on that journey as well. Like, finding my authentic self and speaking up with my authentic voice.
Yeah.
But I want to go to the second question, which is, what is success to you? How do you define success now?
Success is building on what we just said.
Yeah.
And that is finding your authentic self. It's one word, and it's a word I learned recently, or I knew about it, but I learned to appreciate, which is ikigai.
Okay.
Right. And ikigai, for those who don't know, is an ancient Japanese philosophy, which stands for life worth. Right. And what ikigai is, it's about alignment.
Right.
So for me, success is about alignment. Alignment of what?
Yeah.
Alignment of what you love to do.
Yes.
What you're good at doing.
Yes.
What you're paid for to do.
Yes.
And what the world needs.
Okay.
So I'm in a constant journey to grow and develop.
Yes.
And grow these areas in a manner that what I love to do, whether it is work and business, whether it is spiritual growth, whether it's religious growth, whether it's relationships, right, and being able to serve other people, okay, is aligned to getting paid, right?
Fantastic.
It would be great if you're getting paid doing what you love to do, rather than having to go and look for a day job, right?
Yeah.
Or anything else, and then aligning it with what the world needs.
Yes.
For me, that's the ultimate success.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And the final question, what advice, if you were to give others an advice in one word, who want to go on an entrepreneurial journey or who wanted to scale their business, what word would you give them as a piece of advice?
Focus on the real what and the real who. It's not one word.
Yeah.
But it's
2 words, what and who.
Yeah, the what and who.
The real what and the real who.
We get carried away with wanting to come up with products and services that the market doesn't really need. And you have to be brutally honest with yourself. What does the market really need? What is really the pain area? And then who, the real who, not the people who claim they could be your customers, or they might seem to be a customer, but really sitting down and in a piece of paper writing down who are your guides in the market, who are your early adopters or champions, and who are the wallet holders, who are the people with money
to put forward.
When you start that, forget the business plan. Forget the whole writing 15 pages or 20 pages of business plan, right? The most basic thing, you have an idea, right? If you can put down and convince yourself and convince 2, 3, 4 other people of your real what, the product that addresses the real what and the real who you want to tap into, then we're talking about doing business.
Talib, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, and I learned so much just speaking to you about this, and I want to say thank you for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And Ramadan Kareem.
Ramadan Kareem, thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.